My name is Henry Lawson, and I have lived in this little house for over 40 years. I built it with my own hands back when my wife Mary was still alive. Every nail, every wall, every corner carries her touch. The smell of her roses still fills the garden each morning. That evening I was sitting in my old armchair by the window. The sun was going down, throwing a golden light over the yard. I had just finished polishing a small wooden frame that held our family picture, me, Mary, and our daughter Anna when she was 10. I smiled looking at it. The phone rang, breaking the quiet. When I picked it up, it was Anna. Her voice always sounded busy these days, like her mind was somewhere else. "Hi, Dad. How are you feeling?" she asked. "I'm fine, love," I said, just keeping myself busy. We talked for a few minutes. She told me she had a new project at work, that Mark, her husband, was planning another business trip. I listened and smiled, though my heart felt a little empty. She used to call just to talk. Now she called because she felt she had to. After a few more words, she said, "All right, Dad, I'll talk to you later, okay?" "Of course, dear," I said. "Take care." I placed the phone down on the table, but before I could stand up, I heard something. A voice. It was Anna's voice again. She hadn't hung up. At first, I thought maybe she was still talking to me, but then I heard another voice, Mark's. "Was that your dad?" he asked. "Yes," she said softly. "He sounds tired lately." There was a pause, then Anna's voice turned serious. "Mark, I think it's time. Dad can't keep living alone. He forgets things, he doesn't eat well. Maybe we should, move him to a nursing home." My hand froze on the table. Mark sighed. "It's for the best, Anna. The house is big and old. Besides, it's worth a lot. We could sell it maybe for 800,000 or 900,000. He'll be taken care of and we'll have less to worry about." Anna didn't answer right away. Then I heard her whisper, "You're right. It's what's best for him." I felt something deep in my chest, like the floor had dropped from under me. The phone was still in my hand, but I couldn't move. I didn't speak. I just sat there, staring at the picture frame. Mary's smile seemed to watch me quietly from inside it. Their voices faded into laughter before the line finally went dead. For a long time I didn't move. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall and the soft hum of the refrigerator. Everything felt heavier, the walls, the air, even my own breath. I stood up slowly and walked to the window. The garden was dark now. The roses were still there, swaying in the wind. I whispered, "You hear that, Mary? They want to put me away." Of course no one answered, only the wind through the trees. I turned off the light, sat back down, and stared at the shadows stretching across the floor. I thought about all the years we spent in this house, raising Anna, painting the rooms, fixing the roof after the storm, laughing in the kitchen while Mary baked her favorite pie. I thought about how hard we worked to build something that would last, a place full of love, not money. But love fades in some hearts. Money doesn't. That night I didn't sleep. I just sat in the dark, listening to the house creak softly around me. By morning, I had already made up my mind. I didn't know exactly what I would do yet, but I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going anywhere. For the next few days, I moved through the house like a shadow. I fixed the leaking tap, trimmed the roses, oiled the hinges on the doors. To anyone watching, I looked like an old man keeping busy. But inside, I was planning quietly. I didn't tell Anna I had heard her call. I wanted to see what she would do next. 3 days later, she arrived with Mark. They came in smiling like everything was normal. Mark brought me a box of pastries and said, "We thought we'd surprise you, Henry." "Surprise me?" I said, forcing a smile. "That's kind of you." Anna hugged me quickly, the way people do when their minds are elsewhere. I could smell the perfume she used to borrow from her mother's shelf when she was a teenager. For a second it brought back everything: our mornings before school, her laughter, Mary's soft voice telling her to be patient. We sat in the living room, and I noticed how Mark's eyes kept moving, over the walls, the ceiling, the windows. He wasn't looking at the house with love, he was measuring it. He said, "This place still looks good, Henry, Must be worth quite a bit these days. I smiled. It's just wood and nails, son. What makes it worth something is who lived here. He chuckled softly, pretending to agree, but I saw it. That small glint of greed in his eyes. Anna stayed quiet most of the visit. She asked if I needed help with my pills, or if I had thought about moving somewhere easier. I told her I liked it here. I said, "Your mother and I built this place. Every corner reminds me of her." She looked down at her hands. "I know, Dad," she whispered. After they left, I sat on the porch watching their car disappear down the road. I felt tired, not in my body, but deep inside my heart. That night I started packing small things. Not clothes, not food, just memories. Mary's wedding ring, her favorite scarf, a photo of the three of us from the summer we painted the fence white. All of it went into a small wooden box I made years ago. I locked it and placed it under the floorboard beneath my bed. For the first time in years, I prayed before sleeping. Not for myself, but for Anna. I prayed she'd remember the girl who used to run barefoot in the garden, not the woman who measured love by numbers. The next morning, the phone rang again. Anna sounded cheerful, maybe too cheerful. "Dad, Mark's been talking about fixing some things in the house," she said. "You know, painting, changing the kitchen, making it more modern." I laughed softly. "I like the old look," I said. "It reminds me who I am." She hesitated. "Right. Well, we'll stop by with some papers tomorrow. Just small things. For your insurance and safety, okay?" "All right, dear," I said calmly. "I trust you." When the call ended, I sat in silence for a long time. I could still hear her words: papers, safety, insurance. I knew what that meant. That night I took out a small notebook and began writing, notes, names, details, everything that would matter soon. I looked around the room one last time before sleeping. The house creaked softly, like it was whispering secrets only I could hear. I whispered back, "Don't worry, Mary. They won't take you away from me." And for the first time in weeks I felt calm, because I knew before they made their move I would make mine. A week later, Anna and Mark showed up again. They looked happy, dressed like they were going somewhere important. Mark carried a neat brown folder under his arm. "Dad," Anna said with a bright smile, "we need you to sign a few papers. Nothing serious. It's just to help manage the house when you're not around." "When I'm not around?" I asked, pretending to sound curious. She laughed quickly. "Oh, I mean, when you travel or if you ever go stay somewhere else for a bit. You know, just in case." I looked at her face for a long time. She looked nervous, like a child caught lying but hoping her father wouldn't notice. I smiled gently. "All right, dear. Let's see those papers." Mark placed them on the table, flipping to the last page. "It's all standard," he said. "You just sign here and here." I nodded slowly, then reached for my glasses. As I put them on, I noticed one thing. The papers didn't look like anything about management. They looked like transfer documents. I looked up at him and smiled again. "You know, Mark, I trust you. I always have. Why don't you leave them here, and I'll take a look later tonight? I like reading things slowly. My eyes aren't as quick as yours." He forced a polite laugh. "Of course, Henry, no rush." When they left, I watched from the window as their car rolled down the road. I knew what would happen next. They thought they had fooled me, but they were only playing a game they didn't understand. That evening I took a quiet walk to town. I visited the notary office. An old friend named Mr. Collins worked there. He'd known me and Mary for decades. I told him what was happening. He listened carefully, then said, "Henry, you can still protect what's yours, but you have to act now." So I did. That very week, I changed the property deed. I transferred the house, not to Anna or to myself, but to a local children's home in Mary's name. It was a place she used to donate to when she was alive, Mary's Haven. Mr. Collins helped me with every detail. When the papers were signed, he handed me the official copy. I held it with both hands and felt peace for the first time in days. A few mornings later, Anna called. "Dad," she said sweetly, "we've decided to help you rest a bit. You'll go stay with a friend of ours for a few days. They have a lovely home near the coast." "A few days?" I asked softly. "Yes," she said. just until the renovation is done. I could hear Mark's voice faintly in the background saying, "It's all arranged." I smiled to myself. "All right, dear," I said. "That sounds nice." The next morning, Mark came to pick me up. I packed only a small bag, clothes, my medicines, and Mary's photo. The house looked peaceful when I locked the door. I whispered to it, "You'll be safe now." Mark drove me for nearly an hour before stopping at a quiet guest house. "This is the place," he said. "Just rest. We'll handle everything." I nodded and stepped out. "Thank you, son," I said calmly. He drove off, probably thinking he had done something clever. 2 days later, I read in the paper that the Lawson house had been sold for $890,000. The photo showed Anna and Mark smiling beside a sold sign. I folded the newspaper neatly and set it aside. I wasn't angry, I wasn't even sad. They thought they had taken everything, but they didn't know. The house was no longer theirs to sell. That night I wrote a letter, just 1 page, short and simple. I signed it, placed it in an envelope with Anna's name, and left it where it needed to be found. Then, the next morning, I left quietly. No phone, no address, no explanation. Just me and my small bag. As I walked down the road, I looked back at the hills behind me. I whispered to myself, "You can't sell love. You can't sell memories." And I kept walking. It had been almost 2 weeks since I left. I spent the first few days by a quiet lake outside town, the same place where Mary and I used to sit every Sunday after church. The air there was soft and still. I'd wake up early, watch the sunrise, and think of her. I had peace again, something I hadn't felt for a long time. Meanwhile, Anna and Mark were living the life they wanted. I could imagine them smiling in some fancy restaurant, celebrating the house sale. To them, I was probably resting in a nursing home far away and forgotten, but life has a way of bringing the truth home. A bright Saturday morning came. I sat on the porch of the small cabin I was renting, reading an old newspaper. The front page showed a picture of the city skyline, and below it a smaller headline, "Young couple returns from trip after closing $890,000 property deal." I looked at the names, Mark and Anna Lawson. I smiled faintly. They had no idea what waited for them. That same morning they were on their way back from their business trip, holding hands, laughing as they drove. They had spent days away, believing everything was perfect. The house was sold, the money was safe, and their worries were gone. When they reached the neighborhood, the sun was shining bright. The house stood there just like before, calm, beautiful, quiet. The garden was even neater than they remembered. Mary's roses were in full bloom, bright red against the green leaves. Mark frowned a little. "That's strange," he said. "The new owners must have moved in fast." Anna smiled, stepping out of the car. "Maybe they love gardening like Dad used to." She walked up to the front porch. Her heels clicked softly against the wooden floor. The sound echoed, a sound that should not have been there, not if the house truly belonged to someone else. She reached into her purse, pulled out her old house key and stared at it for a moment. "Just for fun," she said to Mark with a little laugh. "Let's see if it still works." She slid the key into the lock. It turned. Click. Perfectly. Her smile froze. The door opened. They both stood still. Inside, the house looked exactly the same. The chairs, the curtains, the smell, everything. Henry's old jacket still hung on the wall. The wooden box was still under the table. The faint smell of fresh bread filled the air like someone had just baked it. Mark's face went pale. "Did anyone break in?" he asked. Anna stepped slowly inside. "No, this can't be." Everything was there, untouched. Even the picture of me and Mary sat on the mantel, shining softly in the sunlight. Then, on the doorstep, Anna saw it. A white envelope resting against the doorframe. Her name was written neatly on the front, Anna Lawson. Her hands shook a little as she picked it up. Mark said, "What's that?" "I don't know," she whispered. Her voice was thin, weak. She could barely breathe. The garden was silent except for the wind moving through Mary's roses. The wind chimes by the porch began to ring gently, just like they used to when Mary was alive. Anna's heart raced. She could feel something was coming, something she wasn't ready for. She looked down at the envelope again. It was sealed with a single drop of wax, something she remembered from her childhood. I used to seal Mary's letters that way. She turned to Mark. It's from my father. And that's when her fingers began to tremble. The paper felt heavier than it should. The house around them felt colder. She hadn't opened it yet, but deep inside she already knew. The truth was waiting inside that envelope, and once she read it, everything would change. Anna stood at the doorway, the envelope still in her shaking hands. The sunlight slipped through the curtains, painting stripes across the floor. Mark waited beside her, impatient, worried, confused. "Open it," he said quietly. Anna broke the wax seal and unfolded the letter inside. The handwriting was slow, neat, her father's. "My dear Anna, you were right. I am getting old. My hands shake, and my memory isn't what it used to be. But I am not useless. And this house is not a burden. Your mother and I built it together, board by board, with love and hope. Before you were even born, we dreamed that this place would be our family's heart, a home filled with care, not numbers or papers. When I heard your voice that night talking about sending me away, I didn't get angry. I just understood. Life moves fast for you now, and I've become a slow part of your world. So before you could sell this house, I made a choice. I changed the deed. This home now belongs to the children at Mary's Haven. It's named after your mother, the woman who gave you your first steps, your first smile, your first love. Those children have no place to call home. Now they do. Don't look for me. I'm not in any nursing home. I'm where I want to be, by the lake where your mother and I used to sit every Sunday. I still talk to her when the sun goes down. Take care of your heart, Anna. Learn to listen before it's too late. With love, Dad." Anna's eyes filled with tears before she even finished reading. Her knees gave way, and she sat on the floor, clutching the letter to her chest. Mark stood silent, his face pale as a sheet. He took the second paper that had fallen out, a legal document. The property deed, stamped and signed. The new owner, Mary's Haven Children's Home. Mark muttered under his breath, "He changed everything." Anna looked around the room. The smell of fresh bread, the sound of the wind chimes, the sunlight dancing across the old photo frames. It all felt like her father was still there, quietly watching. "I thought he needed me," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks, "but I was the one who needed him." She pressed the letter to her lips and began to cry harder, calling his name again and again, but only silence answered. The roses outside swayed gently in the wind, their petals brushing against the window. It was as if Mary herself was whispering through them, comforting her child one last time. Mark stepped outside, unable to speak. The weight of guilt and disbelief hung over him. The deal he thought was smart had turned to dust. The house, the money, all gone. Anna stayed on the floor, still holding the letter. The sun began to fade, and the wind chimes rang softly again. She finally understood what her father had meant when he once told her, "You can't own love, you can only give it." Far away by the quiet lake, I sat watching the sunset. The sky was orange and gold, just the way Mary loved it. I held her picture in my hand and smiled. I thought of Anna and whispered, "She'll understand one day." The water shimmered. The wind carried the sound of distant laughter, children's laughter. I like to think it came from Mary's Haven, from the home we built now filled with new life. I leaned back on the bench, feeling the soft evening air against my face. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly free. And as the sun sank below the hills, I whispered softly, "Home isn't something you sell, it's something you protect." Then I closed my eyes and listened to the world grow quiet again. Please like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories.